Just a reminder, if you'd like to submit questions, you can always go to Bizibo app or the website. So, giving what we can, I imagine that's why most of you are here, so you probably know a thing or two about the organization. But as a refresher, it's a community of people who have pledged to donate 10% of their income to the most effective organizations they can find. The organization has changed a lot over the past few years, growing from a handful of eager Oxford students and academics to the organization it is today. Our next speaker, Julia Weiss, will share with us a short talk and some updates on their work. She's coming from a career in social work and is now the president of Giving What We Can and a community liaison at the Center for Effective Altruism. Join me in welcoming Julia to the stage.
Thank you. So, as Roxanne said, I'm now the president of Giving What We Can. That's quite a recent thing, just in the last couple of weeks. And Giving What We Can is a project of the Center for Effective Altruism. So that's why it is that I have both of those roles there. And I want to express my gratitude to Michelle Hutchinson, who just spoke, who led Giving What We Can for years, and to the other staff who, with her, have made it what it is today. It's an organization that means a lot to me because it was one of the first ways that I came in contact with others from this community before it actually had the name of Effective Altruism. Giving What We Can was one of the first ways that I heard about people who were thinking about effective giving, and that meant a lot to me in the days when I just didn't know other people who were thinking about this sort of thing. So I'm so pleased to be working on this project. As Roxanne said, Giving What We Can is a community of people who have pledged to give at least 10% of our incomes over the course of our careers to the most effective organizations that we can find. And it was founded in 2009 by Toby Ord, who's a philosopher in Oxford. And at that time, it was coming out of the concern for what those of us in the developed world who have more resources than we need to meet our basic needs might do for those living in extreme poverty. And he found it really compelling that by donating a portion of one's income, you can really make a very significant difference to other people. You can change people's lives. You can save many people's lives over the course of your career without needing to change jobs or move to another continent or get a PhD. In many ways, it's a remarkable opportunity, and that's what this organization has its roots in. Over the years, we have shifted to not be focused only on extreme poverty, but to whatever cause members believe they can make the most difference in. So for many members, that does remain global health and development work. For others, it's animal welfare. For others, it might be scientific research that could benefit many people. For others, it's global catastrophic risks, protecting humanity from things that would threaten all of us. So the key thing is this question of where can we make the most difference with our donations. And people will have different answers to that question. We understand that, and we don't think it's an easy question as to what are the world's most effective organizations. We have some ideas, and I'm happy to speak more about that at office hours if you'd like. So I want to give a baseline example of the kind of difference that people can make through effective giving. Some of our talks sort of go into why effectiveness a lot. I think that's not really a tough sell for this crowd, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the question of why would you want to donate effectively. But I will give this baseline example that we think sort of demonstrates the kind of effect that one can have through personal giving. So this is Dennis and Wycliffe. They live in Kenya, and you see them behind this blue insecticide-treated bed net, which is protecting them from the mosquitoes that in Kenya and many other tropical parts of the world or subtropical spread malaria. Malaria kills somewhere around 500,000 to 1 million people each year. If you were to get sick with malaria, you would develop high fever, shaking, chills, weakness, vomiting, and if you became very sick and couldn't get treatment, you would die. Particularly if you were a child or a pregnant woman, they're particularly susceptible. So This is a map of increasing coverage of bed nets in malaria, in Africa, sorry. If you look at the beginning, so this is over time from 2000 to 2015, they asked people, did you sleep under a bed net last night? And you can see that in 2000, the whole map is red. Virtually no one is sleeping under a bed net, and according to this study. And as time goes on, more and more people are in this sort of yellow and green, sort of 50% to 100% range of people protected by nets the previous night. So this is a dramatic shift over just 15 years. And the effective altruism community played a real role in this. So by 2015, around 5% of those nets represented on this map were funded by donors who list GiveWell as one of their inspirations for giving there. So some of that is large foundations, but many of those nets were funded by individual donors using the work of GiveWell, who have been represented at this conference as well. So I see this as an effort that came from many places, including governments and other organizations, but some of it is coming from this very community. And I'm happy that I was part of that, that through personal donations, I helped distribute some of these nets, and that's a good feeling to me, particularly when I see this next map. So this is the change in the incidence of malaria over the same period. You can see that in 2000, we'll wait till it comes around again, there's lots of red of sort of this bright yellow high rates of malaria. As time goes on, the map gets darker and darker as the rates of malaria go down and down. And the paper that this is from in Nature indicates that this isn't just a correlation, it is actually caused by the distribution of bed nets. So this, to me, represents a lot of progress, not just in the individual sort of symptoms of people being sick less and dying less, but if you think about what you can and can't do when you personally are experiencing nausea, high fever, shaking, weakness. You're not able to go to school, you're not able to go to work, you're not able to take care of your family. All the things that people like to do with their lives when they're not sick with malaria, this represents the freeing of that potential from the burden of disease. And to me, the ability to play a part in this process is one that means a lot to me. So again, we think there are many causes out there that have an argument for being very high effectiveness. We think that global health has a particularly robust body of evidence that makes it one of the sort of safer choices. And we see it as sort of a baseline, very good option, though with the acknowledgement that there are other very good options out there as well. And when I speak about personal giving, I don't want to minimize the ways that people make differences in other ways. So for example, this is Tu Yao Yao. She recently won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for her work developing an anti-malarial drug that has treated millions of people for malaria. So of course, she made more difference through her scientific work than she could have through personal donations. We don't see personal donations as the only way forward, but we see it as one of many tools that are available to people, and one that's easily combined in some cases with other types of work. So for example, our founder, Toby Ord, he pledged to give away all his income above a certain line to the best causes that he can find. So he's able to have an impact through his direct donations. But he made more difference by founding Giving What We Can and spreading these ideas about effective giving. And then during his day job, he works at the Future of Humanity Institute, researching ways that humanity could be safer from global catastrophic risks. So we do think people are able to combine more than one way of making a difference, and we see personal giving as one that often can be fit in with other methods. So even if you're interested in personal giving, why have a pledge? Why formalize it in this way? So on a personal level, we think that people are more likely to stick to their goals when they have some structure around that. Just as if you wanted to exercise more regularly, you might join a gym. You might ask your friends to check in on you to see if you've really gone to the gym. You might do better at sticking to that goal if you have some structure in place. And this is a public pledge. Almost all of our members have their name posted publicly on the website. And so it is a commitment that they're making not just to themselves or to us, but to anyone who wants to know. And we think that that helps people, again, sort of stick to their commitment in a way that might be easier to sort of wiggle out of if you didn't have as much structure. And some people also find that it sort of steers their own interests, so that by formalizing it in this way, it's something that they think about on a regular basis, and so it steers their own interest to know that this will be an ongoing part of their lives. It's something they pay more attention to. It's something that they continue to have more interest in than they would have had there not been any kind of a commitment. And we also think that it's easier to make anything a part of your financial life if you plan on it in advance rather than having it be an afterthought. We think that people are able to give more if that's their goal, if they budget it in advance rather than sort of seeing what's left over at the end of the year. And on a group level, we see that people who have a community supporting them often really benefit from that. So I know personally I did when my husband and I were coming out of college. We knew that we wanted giving to be an important part of our lives, but we didn't know anyone else who were interested in it in the same way that we were. So when we first started meeting people through Giving What We Can who were also thinking along these lines, it was just such a benefit to us to know other people who took this really seriously, to be able to talk with them about where to give, where was most effective. It really changed our thinking about a lot of things, and we found the support from other Giving What We Can members over the years to be really helpful to us in sort of maintaining our own excitement about this and the sort of quality of information that we're getting about where to give. And then on a societal level, we'd like to nudge society towards treating this as a more normal thing. So in the US, households typically donate around 1% to 2% of their household income. In other countries, it's usually lower than that. We think that many households could be affording a bit more than that. So we think that many people could find that this by making this a more important part of their financial plan, that people can both have a real difference on others' lives and also retain the things that are most important to them. So I've found, even after sort of having 2 children, that I still have the most important things in my life, even after donating a significant percent. And many others have found that too. When I was preparing for this talk, I looked at some of the very early Giving What We Can talks where they're saying, yeah, in our first year, 38 people have taken this pledge. And at the time, that was really exciting, because if you're the only one, then meeting 37 others is like the best day of your life. But I have to say that we are now at over 2,800 members, and interest does seem to continue rising. We're really happy to see that so many people are interested in effective giving and in joining with others to do that. I think it's quite awkward often to just say, like, I donate this much money, whereas saying, I'm a member of a group called Giving What We Can, here's what we do, here's why I joined. In many ways, that's a more approachable way to speak about the topic. So we think that this has real benefits in terms of nudging society towards treating effective giving as something that could be part of many people's lives, and nudging people towards giving more effectively and giving more. So before we get to the audience questions, I want to address some of the questions that do come up commonly, including some that I actually misunderstood until fairly recently. So I think it does get a bit complex, and I won't go into every single detail, but I'm happy to take specific questions in office hours. And in general, I want to say sometimes people get confused about the pledge and whether exactly how it would apply to them, or if they've already taken it even, maybe have questions about how it would continue applying to their situation as that changes, please do talk to us. And when I say us, it's me on the other end of that email address, which is community@givingwhatwecan.org. So please do feel free to drop me a line there. And I'm happy to chat about sort of what the spirit of the pledge is and how it might apply to a specific situation. One question we get a lot is, what about students or other people who don't have a regular income? If you don't have a regular income, then it's 1% of your spending money that you would pledge. So for students, that would be, spending money would be money that's not going to tuition. So many people do find that that 1% is very doable for them, even without having a standard job. We sometimes are asked if there are special exceptions, so if you work at a nonprofit or something, the answer is no. If you work at a regular job, if you have a regular income, then it's the same 10% for everyone. Although you can choose to pledge more, so 10% is the standard, but some people have chosen to pledge above that. We're asked if it's pre or post-tax. We actually recently changed this. It used to be pre-tax for everyone, but the Norwegians let us know that since they don't get a tax deduction, it's not quite fair for across the board. So if you are donating and expecting to get a tax deduction, then it should be pre-tax, that you would take that 10% of your income. If you're not expecting a tax deduction, you could do post-tax. And I should say also that we often speak about charities, donating to charities, but the pledge is to give to whatever organizations you believe are most effective. And that could include projects that are not registered as nonprofits, which might be another reason that you wouldn't get a tax deduction. So, you know, if you're donating to something that's just getting off the ground and perhaps isn't registered yet as a nonprofit, maybe a research project that isn't going to be a nonprofit, maybe to political advocacy, those are, you know, other possible good options beyond registered nonprofits. There's a question about how often to give. The spirit of the pledge is to give on an ongoing basis. We want to put our money where our mouth is and be living this on an ongoing basis rather than sort of planning to do it in the future. That said, though, there are sometimes reasons for, you know, temporary financial hardship or maybe tax reasons why people might want to delay giving for a while. And so we think on the scale of a couple years, that's fine to sort of average it out. But we wouldn't want people building up this really large donation debt that they're planning to give later, both because that may become really unworkable for them and because the spirit of the pledge is to give on an ongoing basis. And again, if you have questions about specifically how that might work, please do talk to me. And the last one that I'll address before we get into your questions is, should everyone pledge? And the answer is no. I mean, we don't expect that this will be universally a good fit for everyone. Of course, some people are in economic situations where this just isn't viable for them at the time. And we do think that for people who are perhaps financially unstable, it's better to wait and see how things work out. There is an alternate pledge called Try Giving, would run through us, where you can choose the amount of the pledge and the time duration of it. So you could try out a 10% pledge for a year. You could try out 5% until the end of the semester. You could, you know, you set the parameters yourself. And we do check in with you at the end of it so that there's that bit of sort of social pressure to actually, you know, follow through on your goal. And then you have the option to renew if you'd like to continue doing that or to change the parameters of your pledge. And I think for some people, this could even be a good option to do ongoing. If they're perhaps not comfortable with the idea of a career-long pledge, then maybe sort of renewing their promise each year or something might be a good option for them. I think another sort of alternative pledge that may be a good fit for some is called the Founders Pledge. That's not run by us, but I can put you in touch with them. So that's for entrepreneurs who need to put all their money into a project right now, but would like to pledge some portion of their profit should their business succeed. So if you're thinking of starting a business, that might be a good fit for you in a way that donating now might not be. So that's another option to consider. But we do think that the Giving What We Pledge, what we can pledge, is a really good option for many people in this community, maybe most people in this community. And we do think that everyone in this community should carefully consider whether it is right for them. So do really give it some thought. Please ask me questions if you have them. And consider whether this might be something that you would want in your life. I know personally I've found that the ability to have a major difference in other people's lives without needing to, again, change my career drastically or move to a new place or, do some sort of high-flying achievement, that this is actually really accessible for a lot of people who may not want to make other changes in their lives, and does let you have a lot of impact. So as a parent, I feel really good about using part of my income to help other parents protect their children from malaria. That means a lot to me to know that they'll be able to keep their kids safe. We do see this as a good path for many people, and we hope that you'll consider it.
Thanks so much.
Do we sit down now?
Yeah,
Oh,
let's
right.
go ahead and sit down. Okay. Even I could have used that refresher, so I really appreciate that. One question that I think you get sometimes is whether or not people can leave once they've taken the pledge.
Yes. So the answer is yes, we do understand that people will sometimes need to withdraw from their pledge after they have made it. We expect that that will be rare. We take the pledge seriously, and we expect others to take it seriously. That's what makes it meaningful. But we do expect that there will be cases where people meet with serious unforeseen circumstances that mean that they need to break the pledge. And we take that into account. But we do expect most people to take this seriously and follow through. We certainly wouldn't expect people to break the pledge because they didn't feel like following through or something like that.
And some people, I think including Will McCaskill, take a pledge where instead of giving 10% of their income, they give everything above a certain threshold. Is that a separate pledge? What does that look like?
So that's called the Further Pledge. At this point, I would say we're not particularly emphasizing that. I think it may be a good option for some people, and I say this as someone who was like really excited about making extreme commitments in my youth. I think it is more limiting to your options, honestly. And so I think a percentage in many ways is more flexible because it means that, say, if your income increases as you go along, that you are both able to give more and have more, say, if you're raising children, if you have more expenses from buying a house or something like that. I think it just is a better and more flexible fit for many people than the Further Pledge. But certainly my kudos to people who have taken that Further Pledge to give everything above a certain line.
And let's say somebody took the 10% pledge and then they decide later that, yes, this is actually the right thing for me. I want to pledge everything above a certain amount. How can a person go about modifying their pledge? Is that something they can do?
Yeah, you can let us know if you'd like to, say, change or increase your pledge. Again, get in touch with us, please.
And somebody said that the numbers on the website are impressive, but how do you know that the numbers are actually true? Are people actually following through?
So this is one of the things that I'd like to learn more about as I sort of take charge of this project. We did have, I would say, better data on the early pledgers, and at this point, we haven't been hearing from people as much as we would like to. So we do contact members each year, asking them to sort of fill out whether they have donated their pledge, and particularly asking them to fill out where they give so that we can see sort of the general pattern of where people in the community are giving. But I would say our data isn't like what I would hope for on that front, and so I do hope to talk with others about ways that we could get better information about that.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some Giving What We Can members in the audience. Not everybody needs to be sold on it, but if they want to sell other people on it, is there something that they can do to encourage other people to pledge? Something in particular that Giving What We Can or CEA might support them in doing?
I mean, we certainly welcome anyone to sort of speak about what Giving What We Can is. If you have some involvement with it, particularly if you're a member, yeah, we would love it if you tell other people about why it is that you made that decision, what it is that might make it a good fit for others. So we think that kind of word of mouth is really important. And particularly because the idea of sort of giving away some percentage of your income to some people can sound like a bit weird. And many people have said it's really reassuring to talk to an actual person who is already doing it and sort of be able to find out how that's working for them, what it looks like in real life. And so that in many cases I think is a much better example than is just hearing the statistic of what it involves.
Especially, I think, in the past couple of years, there have also been Giving What We Can pledge drives. Is this just something that CEA does, or is this something that people could organize themselves?
There certainly have been events, so both run through CEA and sort of local groups sometimes organizing events to sort of maybe have people who have taken the pledge talking about what that's been like for them. We're very happy to have people organize events like that or take part in the pledge drive, usually each winter that we hold it. So talking to other people about what the pledge is. So please do get in touch if you're interested in helping out with any of that.
And there's been some restructuring, and you might have touched on this earlier, but there's been some restructuring within CEA and Giving What We Can's relationship to that. Is there like more detail there that you might be able to touch on?
So Giving What We Can, in some ways, was actually sort of the predecessor of the Center for Effective Altruism. At this point, it's been sort of incorporated into the Center for Effective Altruism and is a project within CEA. So it's run sort of as a project within CEA. And we've also had changes to what type of work we do. So we did originally do research on providing charity recommendations within global poverty. And at this time, we've closed that research program. We thought that it wasn't sort of our comparative advantage, especially compared to GiveWell's work. We're happy to see other charity evaluators out there. That would be great. But we didn't think it was the best use of us as an organization. So at this point, we refer people to GiveWell's recommendations if they are looking for a place to donate in global health and development. We would also suggest that people look at the EA funds, which has funds based on different cause areas, such as global health and development, animal welfare, EA community building, and the long-term future, which is based around protecting humanity from various risks. So those are some of the donation options that we would suggest people look at this point.
All right. And I think with that, we're going to call it a wrap. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.